Hello and welcome to another video from a very familiar place. So if you follow my vlog, you've seen this woodland a couple of times. I'm back here at the striding tree, which unfortunately has lost a couple of branches. So yeah, it's losing slowly its appeal, but there are still some perspectives that work. And yeah, today I'm not just photographing it during daytime, or usually I'm here when there's fog. There's no fog today, but I don't need it because what I want to attempt today is some nighttime woodland photography. So I arrived early to just figure out my surroundings, composition and everything, but now I'm gonna wait until it's dark and then I'm gonna do some experiments. If you remember, a few weeks ago I did a review of the Colbor Studio Light, the very compact one, the CL60R, and I also showed you how you can use it together with a Moman V-mount battery. So you get a very portable kit which you can bring outside. And yeah, in that video I already said I want to try this for some woodland photography, and yeah, that's what we're gonna do today. And I don't yet know what comes out of it, so it's kind of an experiment out of my comfort zone. But let me quickly show you what I have here. So first of all, I already set up the camera vertical frame with those trees here in the foreground leading this side, then the striding tree going into the other direction, so I have some tension in the frame, also a nice foreground. Because I have so much foreground, I wanted to get in some frames now before it's getting dark, just to have some details to work with later. So I already did a focus bracket from front to back because the light is pretty flat, and I can later easily turn those photos into some gloomy looking scenes or making it dark, so it will blend hopefully nicely with the night photos I'm gonna attempt later. So just to bring in some detail here in the foreground and also around those trees here where we have the moss. So as usual, the time blending, where I photograph when it's still bright enough, then leave everything in place, don't move the camera, and then take the nighttime photos, for which, as I said, I brought the Colbor Studio Light. I haven't attached the Moman battery yet, we'll attach it later, and yeah, it should give me around 1 hour of light to do light painting. And what I'm gonna attempt, so you see I have it on my tripod here, the light. I'll do a few shots where I place the light there on the other side of those trees to give them some silhouette lighting. So basically pointing the light in this direction, in the direction of the camera, but keeping it behind the trees so it's not directly in the frame. Then I want to try to bring it in from the side, so basically simulating some moonshine, and I'll also try the other side. So I have no idea, I didn't really pre-visualize because I have no idea how it's gonna look. It's really just experimenting, and later it's getting dark, moving around, pointing the light in different directions, and seeing how this looks on the back of the screen of my camera. Also, I want to experiment with colors, so mainly I shoot with neutral light, but as I showed in the review video, this light can also do, for example, blue, red, basically every color there is. And I want to experiment with some bluish tones just to see if I can create some moody look with that. If it doesn't work out, doesn't matter, just experimenting. Afterwards, since I can't film when it's dark with the GoPro, it's just not working out. What I'm gonna do, I'll take you to the office, show you what I got, explain a bit how the shoot went, and then if I get some photos which are good, I'll have to put them together and give you a very rough overview about the processing that I do on those photos. Yeah, at least that's the plan for now. Now I'm gonna wait and see you in the office later. So we're now back in the office, and I already had a first look at the photos, and I have to say I'm pretty impressed by the possibilities that using such a studio light outdoors can offer. So especially the backlight situations, I think, look very dramatic, worked very well for that. What didn't work so nice was shining in the light from the side. This created too much chaos in the scene, so too many harsh shadows, and also the light distribution wasn't so even. I think I would have needed to go much farther away from the scene with the light, and also I would have had to use a very, very strong light. So this didn't work out so nice, but as I said, backlight situations, this is really where this light shines. And one thing, it was maybe 5 degrees Celsius out, so pretty cold, and I was shooting for close to 30 minutes with the light sitting between 60 and 70% intensity. And yeah, the Moment Power 99 battery, which I used at the end of the shoot, it was still close to 80% of its capacity, which is pretty nice. It means that if you use such a combination of light and battery, you can really take your time to compose the shots. Yeah, you don't have to fear that the battery will run out through a shoot. So I could have at least shot more than 1 additional hour without problems. Okay, I think now it's time to look at the photos. Remember, I took a few photos when it was still bright outside, so before I even used the light. I didn't need to use those for the final edit because photos here, which I shot, as you can see, during blue hour with the light, still contain a lot of detail here. And let me quickly show you the before and after so you see how much detail I could recover with the Canon R5. So this is the original shot. You see the sky is pretty bright but not blown out, and here the foreground, it's dark but still contains just enough detail to pull up the shadows and create all the detail I need in the final image. You should also note that bringing the highlights down and increasing the shadows here creates quite a flat image. This is not the final result I'm after. This is just how I process my raw photos to get as much detail over to Photoshop later. So you see here in the histogram, it's pretty evenly distributed here. I don't have really dark tones, I don't have really bright tones, and that's usually a good start for post-processing, even though I will go much darker with the final edit, because this here lost a lot of the atmosphere I wanted to create in the first place. But you see here, when it was still pretty bright, you already see that the light has quite a nice effect, and as it got darker, the light source got more dominant and the ambient light was reduced more and more, so the image looked more and more interesting. Let me quickly show you a few photos. So this one here, for example, I think I had it focused somewhere at the foreground here. So yeah, this is one of the photos which I'll use here for this area. So I did focus stacking, but just manual focus stacking, and I did it with the light. So you see this image versus this one, the light's already much more prominent because the ambient light was reduced. So you also see the time up here. So it was around 8 minutes later, so it got darker, and now I also had to, I think here I'm at 30 seconds, f9.5, before I was just at 15 seconds. Here also the shadows come out more, so it looks already much more dramatic. And I think here I focused on the background. So this is one of the photos I'll use for the background. And then I took a few more. So as it got darker, you see here the time, 1 minute later, then here it's 20:30. So already the sky is getting darker. And let's see, I think this one is also focused at the background. So I have several photos focused at background, some at the foreground. And yeah, usually I don't use a specific order in the field. It's a bit chaotic. I usually order those in Photoshop later. But yeah, just believe me when I tell you I have a photo for the close foreground, for the middle ground, and a couple here for the background, because this is where the light was shining and I wanted to capture a few photos. Now let's move to Photoshop and I show you the steps I took to create the final image, which you haven't seen, right? So the first step, as usual, I bring over all the photos and I blend them. So this is the focus stacking part, and let me quickly show you how sharp the image now is with the photos I showed you. So I could blend everything together, and I didn't use a software like Helicon Focus for this. It was pretty easy because the blending involved just using this part here for the foreground, so there is nothing protruding into the background here. It's pretty easy drawing a line and filling the area. I have several videos on that. I can link one of those. Then the middle part is basically this tree, and it was also pretty easy to mask it. And then we have all the background. Next step is black and white conversion, and let me show you what this does to the image. So already this looks kind of nice. So for the black and white conversion, I used a mix of let me just show you the black and white tool here, which is nice because I can control how bright I want the sky. What I also use is gradient map, and this is very dramatic, but you can also use this to control the contrasts a bit by just moving this over, creating more bright areas, or moving it in the other direction, making the image more dark, more dramatic. So a combination of those two, usually working with the masks, gives me the final black and white conversion. But I'm not done with that. So having the black and white conversion is just the first step. Afterwards, a mix of dodge and burn, contrast work, and just painting in some atmosphere to create the final image, which looks like this here. So you see foreground, I made it darker because here it's drawing too much attention. I made this area a little brighter, and I used some brushes to just paint in with white on a blank layer to create the illusion of some atmosphere or even fog in that area. So just see again the before and after. So now you're drawn much more into this scene. It looks much more dramatic than this one, which still looks a bit flat and you don't really know where to look. So your eyes might be drawn to this brighter area, to this brighter area, and the light in the background should be the brightest part of the image, which it is for this image. So you really have to move here and then see the dancing or striding trees, and also the nice dramatic light up here on the different branches. So for me, although I didn't know 100% what I wanted to capture that evening, it was kind of an experiment. This is a nice result I got here. So I'm really pleased with it. And if you look at this, the color version, then turning it into black and white creates quite a dramatic image. And let me show you a normal scene without the light. So this is how the scene looked just before sunset or around sunset. Pretty boring sky, foreground looks nice, but yeah, there's just no atmosphere. And by using the light after dark, I could create some really interesting scene. Also want to show you, as I said in the first part of the video, I wanted to experiment with different colors of the light. So here in this image, I used a cyan greenish light, which also looks quite interesting. So if I were to go for a color version instead of black and white, I might have actually used this one because it looks very mystic, very gloomy. But as I wanted to go with black and white, after looking at the photos, it didn't make sense to use this color version, but I just wanted to show you what's possible. I could have also used red, but since all the leaves here are red, I thought going with some cyan greenish tone, this might create a nice color contrast. So this is also an option you have when using such a light as the Colbor, where you also can use colors. So I hope you found this interesting. I think the results are pretty nice, and they show that it's good to experiment from time to time. Try something new with your photography. For me, it was using a light and taking photos of woodland in the dark. So I haven't done this before, and I think it's a pretty cool way to create interesting photos on otherwise ordinary light. As you saw, it was pretty flat that evening. There was no atmosphere, but with such a light I could create a pretty gloomy, moody scene. I hope you liked the video. If so, leave a thumbs up and see you in the next video. Bye.